What up, what up, what up? This is Raheem Ali. Want to talk to you a little bit. Decided to do a thing. Um, some of y'all know I had a podcast with my ex-wife, I guess a couple years ago, talking about our poly life and how we were helping people and speaking on all things non-traditional. So now that I am on the solo mission, I decided to do one of my own, something that just is really just my own musings around life and art and politics, a little bit of politics, amongst other things, non-monogamy, non-traditional stuff, amongst other things. But what I wanted to start with is this one thing I heard on the show called The Pit. It's on Amazon Prime. It's one of those medical shows type deals. And what it was is it was simple. It was I love you, thank you, I forgive you, please forgive me. And it has been living rent free in my mind for about a week. It's very vulnerable. It's very honest and open. And if you mean it when you say it, I'm thinking if you mean it when you say it, just imagine all the all the energy you release, especially if it's quote unquote negative energy or bad energy. So again, it's I love you, thank you, I forgive you, please forgive me. So take that as you will, but it's something that I really was feeling over this last week. And it comes at a time just today, this day last year, July 29th, is the last day I saw my mother. She passed away about 30 days later, August 30th. 2024. My mother and we didn't have the closest of relationships, but we weren't estranged or anything. But again, she was my mother. Um, and she passed away of cancer, what they believe was lung cancer. So, I mean, it really brings me to this crossroads of, you know, what my life actually is right now, what my life actually is right now. Since then, as some of you know, after my mother passed, my godmother passed, who was, you know, instrumental in my rearing coming up. Spent a lot of time with her as a kid, and she just supported me my whole life. And you know how we are about our godparents, especially our godmothers. Soon after that, my father passed. So within 6 months, my mother, my godmother, and my father passed. And then a couple months later, my uncle passed, my mother's brother. So it's just been a lot of loss, and weaved within all of that, I went through a divorce, moved out, all that kind of stuff, all the things that come with divorce. And they say that's, some people say that divorce is a death as well. A death of a relationship. The relationship with my mother is gone. It's a death of a relationship. So I understand that sentiment quite well. So this last year has been filled with a lot of loss. And I've had to process that. I've had to try to understand what it is that it meant to me. Like, what does my own life mean? My own mortality. Thinking about, my mother was 70 when she passed, and that's 23 years for me. That's 23 years away, and reconciling whether, what do I do if I only get the same amount of time that my mother had. What do I do with that time? Even living in the present as I do, as I believe that the present is the only important moment. But what do I do with the rest of this life? Knowing or understanding that even more so that life is short. We are here but a speck of time. And 70 years, it's not long. It's not long at all. And I'm close to that. I mean, I'm close enough. I'm closer than I was when when I first had children, which was 24 years ago, 23 years ago. So I'm at an impasse. I'm at a turning point, should I say, of my own life and how to move forward. How to move forward. My father and I weren't particularly close at all either, but we weren't estranged. We did have a relationship. I have memories of both my mother and my father. So it's like, again, I'm at this point of like losing your parents and you know, trying to raise children. I have a young son, trying to raise children and, without that, I guess that family support, trying to raise children without their grandparents. My son's mother's parents are also gone. To not have that is a very interesting place to be. For my son not to have grandparents and not to have, that kind of support, is challenging to my mind. Even though I didn't have my grandparents, but my son did meet his grandparents. He met my parents, but for him not to even have a chance at a relationship with them is, it. I feel it. I feel it. I feel it all over. And quite often, actually, even today, someone asks me how I'm doing. And the fact of the matter is, I'm doing all the ways. I'm happy and sad and depressed and creative and um, fill in the blank. You know what I mean? Hurt and I'm content and I'm lonely. And these things just happen. These things happen not all the time. Part of the time, I feel these ways. It varies moment to moment how I feel, how I'm doing. But what I told her was overall I'm okay. So that puts me right, not necessarily balanced, but somewhere in the middle I am where I'm maintaining. So that has been, people do check in and that's fun and that's love and I appreciate it. So I'm very grateful and thankful for that. So with all that said, I want to welcome you to Raheem, right? Right. This is my mess. This is my place to talk, to muse, to listen, to learn. Um, I hesitate to call it my podcast, but I guess it is a podcast because I will be casting the pod and talking to you about all these things that I find interesting. So if you want to participate, just jump in, get in where you fit in. First, I want to talk about divorce. I'm mostly sad about my divorce in for my son. A lot of you guys know me, know who I am, and I've been social medially active for like 25 years. I was in the Black Planet onto MySpace. I did all that stuff. I was super active and all that, and I was always posting my kids and all that stuff. I have twin girls. They are 23 now. They just turned 23 a couple weeks ago. So a lot of y'all remember them when they were little girls, and so now they're whole grown women. Again, they're whole grown women now, and now I have a little boy. He's 6 years old, so there's a 17-year age gap between between my kids. And the biggest thing with divorce for me it's not so much the heartache of the divorce or anything having to do with our relationship per se. I mean, there's some things, there's some feelings there, of course, but the biggest thing is the support from my son. Um, he's still pretty young. I mean, we broke up. Maybe I would say I guess it was a year ago. So he was almost 5. Uh, Wanting to get him a start with parents, wanting to get like a fresh start of years and years and years of having his parents together, whether they were in love with each other or not. I wanted that for him. So I'm mostly sad for him, even though we both love on him very, very strongly, and he seems to be well adjusted in his new reality. Moving between my home and her home, but that is something that I wanted for him, especially when I figure into my life that I didn't do it right the first time. Where um, you know me and my daughter's mom, we broke up really early in their lives, so they didn't really get a chance to enjoy having their parents. And I felt that I was doing it right this time, getting married, having been married, having a kid, and providing something for a black boy that is so crucial and so important. So that is something I deal with. That is something that obviously I have to get over. But that is something that troubles me still, that I'm not quite over. I'm not quite satisfied with the outcome of that. So I don't know. So more about my marriage. I won't say most of you, but some of you know that my marriage was, we were open, we were non monogamous. And quite often get the question of, if you were non monogamous, why divorce? But then I've also gotten the question, if you're non monogamous, why get married? So it's this duality in that. And I can answer both. I mean, both questions are fairly easy to answer. Why get married if you're non monogamous? Well, one, you can write your own rules to marriage. I know that there is a script that marriage is supposed to be one thing, and we shifted away from that. We designed a marriage that suited us, that fitted us at the time, that we found to be healthy at one point, and it didn't. My marriage didn't fail because of that. So, and it's something that I ended up really identifying with, and I still identify with being non-monogamous, and I'm proud of it. I don't find any shame in it. Felt, having lived that life for over, I guess it's almost 5 years or whatever. I find that I heavily identify with it. I've leaned in, and it's a relationship style that really feels good to me. So there's no shame in how I relate and how I engage women in relationships. So that's why. That's why I still get married, because even though you're non-monogamous, there's still some things that, in a traditional sense, that you may want somebody to come home to, somebody to share life with, to have that companionship. And maybe don't want to be a solo guy or a solo woman for the duration, which is something called solo polyamory. Which is what kind of I engage in. It's kind of like a single person that's actually non-monogamous. So in how I relate now is that I'm essentially, I'm the center of my relationships. Like I'm not, basing my relationship or my future based on my relationship. Like, I center myself, and it might sound selfish, but I center myself. I'm not currently cohabitating with anybody. I'm not building, necessarily making a huge future with someone else, and that could change for sure. That could change, but it's something that I identify with. The biggest thing is about being ethical about it. So, whether I have partners or lovers or girlfriends or whatever, they know the way I live. And I think that is a honest, vulnerable way to live, if that's if that's how you identify with. So that's really important to me. So the second part is, so the first part was, why get married if you are non-monogamous? I think I answered that. Second part is, why divorce if you're non-monogamous? Because you can have other people. Fair question. However, the answer to that, for me, the answer to that is, being non-monogamous does not overlook the fact that you might be incompatible with somebody. Simple. That does not, being able to date someone else does not overshadow the fact that maybe you shouldn't be with a person, or maybe things just aren't working out and y'all just are not a vibe and the chemistry's off. Whatever it is, whatever you decide, you two decide the issue is between in your marriage, being non-monogamous does not solve that. A lot of people get into non-monogamy, open their relationships up, marriages up, because something's missing. Well, that thing is still going to be missing, because in that initial relationship, in that primary relationship, it's still going to be missing in that relationship. I mean, you might get that thing that you want from someone else, but if you want it in your relationship, it's still missing. So whether you do it, you know, if you decide to cheat on somebody, or if you decide to open your relationship up, being non-monogamous is or switching to non-monogamy is not the way to fix your relationship. So again, the answer to that is, the two are not related. Or they don't have to be related. Being non-monogamous and staying in a relationship, a bad relationship, or a relationship that doesn't suit you, is still a relationship that doesn't suit you, unless non-monogamy. So unless non-monogamy actually connected. So another thing I want to talk about as it pertains to divorce is emergency contacts. It is not a thing that I considered when I was in the process of divorce, the process of separating. And one of the reasons you get married is to have your person, to have your plus one, to have your emergency contact. I hadn't considered it until I got divorced and I went to the doctor's office. I went to the doctor's office and I had to fill in the paperwork. And it just, they want to know all the information. And I just, I was stuck for a second. I did put my ex-wife that day, but I had to like reconsider some things. Like, is this a thing that I want still? Is like, have we talked about it? And it challenges like it challenges your notion of what the state of your relationship is after divorce. Like, do I still feel about this person to have them, because essentially they're still in your life in that way, that they're emergency contact. Maybe they can make decisions on your behalf if, say that there's some medical emergency. And again, I was stuck for a moment because I just didn't know. I hadn't understood, or I didn't, like I said, I didn't consider that this was a thing. This, people don't talk about this. They don't tell you that all the things you got to think about after divorce. And then, we're in a situation where we're still parenting a young child. So navigating that. So it's like post divorce relationship management. Ooh, I just coined the term. Actually, y'all check and see if that's a term already. Post divorce relationship management. PDRM. Note the note the acronym PDRM. If it does not exist, then I am going to start my own practice called post divorce relationship management, and I help people after divorce, aka therapy. But you don't have to be licensed. So if anybody wants to learn, you can DM me, and I will sign you up for a certification, $2,500. Anyway, I just digressed it. So yeah, emergency contacts. So what do you do? What do you do? How do you talk about it? I changed my emergency contacts. What do I do? What do I who's my new emergency contact? And now I live in Atlanta, and I was already away from my parents there in Philly, and to get here and not have them, or not have a lot of close family members, I had to reconsider and just like pivot, for that. And it made me a little sad because you get married, and one of the reasons, like I said, one of the reasons you get married is you have your plus one, you have your emergency contact, you have the person that's going to make decisions on your behalf if needed, and you think you tend to want to sever that tie when you get divorced, depending on what your relationship is like. And that was the thing that I had to think about. It was the little things that they don't really tell you after divorce. But it also made me sad because again, it was the revelation that my life was in transition again. And like most of you, or like all of you, you lived several lives. You lived the life before you were married. You lived the life of when you are courting your potential partner or potential spouse. You live a life where you're engaged. You live a life where you get married. You live a life when you live in one city and opposed to another city, where you got this job opposed to that job. And then you live a life where post divorce, and what life looks like between relationships. So I lived all these different lives, and to come to a point where you just every day you're just reconciling relationships. You're just reconciling how you feel. So that's been a thing that another thing that I've been thinking about, and I guess mourning for the last year. Another thing I want to talk about is therapy, in particular talk therapy. For me, it's been beneficial. I don't know how beneficial. I don't know how deep I need to go. I don't know if I have the right therapist. Like, I don't know if I made any major breakthroughs. And I believe that is one of the points and one of the tenets of therapy. And I know it's a client driven practice where, it's really about me being the getting clarity by by prompts essentially from a therapist. But I just don't think that I've gotten all the breakthroughs that have been promised. Like something's going to come out. Maybe I have the wrong therapist. My one therapist told me, so I was in a place where, again, like I said, I lost my mother, my godmother, my father, my uncle, and my marriage within the course of 10 months. And, I didn't cry a lot. In my opinion, I didn't grieve a lot. And I talked to my therapist about it, and he said, well, maybe this is the extent of your grief. Maybe you don't grieve a lot. Maybe you don't grieve a lot for your mother or your father because you weren't that close to them. Even with them being your mother and father, and even in your marriage, maybe, you saw the end coming or something, and you didn't grieve so much because this is what your grief looks like. And as they say, everybody grieves differently. Your grief probably looks like, or could look like, um just what it is. Because I was under the impression that, and I booked my EAP therapist because I'm like, if there is a breakdown, because in my head I saw a breakdown, not because I felt it, but because people break down when people die, and I hadn't broken down. I cried a little bit, and I attended everybody's funerals, and it was sad and all the things, but I didn't have this breakdown that I thought I would have. So I said, since I didn't have it, I'm definitely going to have it because that's how people do. And my therapist said, well, maybe this is it. However you did grieve, that might be it. So that was actually something that I felt deep. And then the other therapist that I had, she said the same thing, or something along the lines of, you know, maybe you're okay. You know, if you're focusing on the moment, on the present, then whatever the future thing you think is going to happen, like, that shouldn't matter, because only thing that is important is what's right in front of you. And if you're projecting 6 months down the road where you're going to have this nervous breakdown, then you're not living in the present. And so as far as talk therapy goes, that was very eye-opening to me, because it gave me the permission to grieve the way that I grieve. And because all these things happen at once, I just knew there was more coming, because how often do you find that someone loses both their parents and these other family members in a marriage and all these things at once, like this major life transition all at one time? And that was very, 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 very eye-opening for me, because, like I said, it gave me the permission to grieve the way that essentially that I grieve. And I learned this kind of real time. And I gave myself the grace and the love to not be hard on myself, not be hard on myself on the way that I grieve. So I was very, very appreciative of that. Lastly, forgiveness, 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 forgiveness. Being in the space of forgiveness has been about me. It has been about me. Has nothing to do with my ex-wife, my mother, my father, my godmother, anybody outside of me. Being in that space of forgiveness for me has been very therapeutic. It is a everyday practice, because these feelings come every day about how I didn't get this, how I didn't get that, how I'm supposed to get this, and so forth and so on. What I deserve, because you only deserve what you say you deserve, and if you don't get it, then you're mad because you didn't say you deserved it, so that must be right because you said it. So, and I'm no different. That is the ego. That is the ego. The ego is strong. The ego is powerful. But if we're living in a higher place, in our higher self, so to speak, we can remove ourselves from that. So a practice that I'm working on is forgiveness and ego death, like really leaning into ego death, knowing that it is not about me. It is not about me, what people do. It is not about me, but forgiveness is about me and not about them. The ego is about me. Forgiveness is about me as well. So the ego tells me, or tells us, that the thing that they did or didn't do is about me. It's personal. You did it to me. And that's not true. That's not true. People are living their lives. People are living their lives. And we come to make these expectations of people. And sometimes it's just too much. Even if you're married, even if you are a son to a mother or a father, in which you are. But even if somebody's supposed to show up for you in a certain way and they don't, the first thing you say is, you did this to me. My expectation is for you not to do this. And you did this to me anyway. But that's not how I see it. That's not how I process it anyway. I saw it like that because, yeah, that's what we're taught. We're taught that, if somebody loves you or 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 treats you like they love you, that they're supposed to do a thing for you, to you, in a certain way. And I say, what if that person is just living their life? Because they are. They're doing what they want to do. Essentially, you want people to do what they want to do. Now, you don't, that excludes, hurting you on purpose. Even someone hurting you on purpose is not about you. And I know that sounds crazy, but even someone hurting you on purpose or trying to hurt you on purpose, it's not about you. It's still about them. So being able to forgive somebody is so powerful. It is a place that I've reached in some aspects, especially considering my parents. But it's still work to do. It's a daily exercise to say, you know what, I forgive you. I forgive you. And then please forgive me. So we're going right back to the top. I love you. Thank you. I forgive you. Please forgive me, because you're releasing your ego in that moment. And these are things that you don't know, all of you. These aren't things that you don't know, but it's so nice to say it out loud, because I do have moments where I'm angry. And these moments don't last long, but I do have moments when I'm angry and I'm like, man, I can't believe so and so did this. And then when I reminisce on my mother and the things that I had and did not have, I'm quick to blame. You know, I'm quick to blame if there's a perceived flaw that I see in myself. It's so easy to say, well, I'm like this or not like this because of X person. It's so easy to do that because it removes the accountability from yourself. And I don't want to move accountability from myself. I want to take ownership of it. And it's not, it's not a perfect practice. I have to show myself grace when I cannot remove the ego, because the ego is strong. That is a part of us. But I do want it to die on every occasion. But it is like Black Jesus. It has risen. The ego has. A lot of times it has risen up in your spirit, because if you love me, you do this, right? But then I gotta apply that to my relationships as well. Like, I know that other people, and people that I have relationships with, are full of ego as well. So I have to be careful in how I approach relationships and what the expectations are, because not everybody is in an ego death. Not everybody is in tune with themselves enough to say, you know what, that ain't about me. Because it feels better to take it personally. It feels better to take it personally. It feels better to be a victim. As crazy as that sounds, it feels better to be a victim, because it relieves you from any blame. It relieves you from any accountability, with saying, you know what, I want to allow people to be who they are. And like they say, once the person shows you who they are, you listen, you pay attention, but also know that it's not about you. It's not about you, because if it is about you, then you are the center of the universe. And we all know that you are not. I know that I am not. So if someone does something to fulfill the desire that they have in them, to better their own life, to be happy, how can I take it personally? Especially if they're not doing something to intentionally harm me. You know, Intentional harm, that's a separate category. That takes a a, a, a shot of higher self that most people um, cannot get to. And I'm working on it, because once you get to that place, nothing can hurt you. No matter what anybody does, nothing can hurt you. So I'm trying to get to that place. I'm trying to relieve myself of the ego, knowing that these things are not about me. And it's super important, because, with the death of these people in my life, it's easy to say, I can't believe that this is happening to me. But my higher self says, how is someone else's death about you? Yeah. How is someone else's death about you? Yeah, I get it. There's a sadness there to have someone go on home. But at the same time, it has nothing to do with you. Husa. I love you. Thank you. I forgive you. Please forgive me.